The locksmith's pick was scratching at my front door, and I sat in the dark and let it. It was Christmas Eve. The air in my parlor felt freezing, but my hands were completely steady. Outside on the porch, heavy footsteps shuffled against the wood. Then came the muffled, arrogant laughter of my brother. Tyler. He was talking entirely too loudly, already acting like he owned the place. Beside him, the sharp whisper of my sister-in-law. Ashley hissed at him to keep his voice down. I sat perfectly still in my armchair. My phone rested on my lap. The screen pitch black. I took a slow, deep breath and listened to the metal scraping inside the deadbolt. They thought they were sneaking into an empty house to claim a stolen prize. They had no idea they were picking the lock to their own ruin. Growing up in the Mitchell household meant learning how to be invisible. My parents, Brenda and Paul, had a very specific hierarchy. And I was permanently stationed at the bottom. I was the eldest, the daughter, the one expected to quietly manage my own existence while every ounce of emotional and financial resources was funneled directly to the golden child. Tyler was 4 years younger than me. But in our house, he was the sun. And the rest of us were just planetary bodies meant to orbit his needs. If Tyler wanted a new video game console, my mother picked up extra shifts. If Tyler crashed his car, my father silently drained the emergency fund to pay off the other driver. Meanwhile, I bought my own clothes by 14, working weekend shifts at a local diner, doing my homework in the break room under a flickering fluorescent bulb. My achievements were met with passive nods. His failures were met with aggressive bailouts. They broke me back then. They convinced me that love was a limited resource, and my brother held a monopoly. But today, I am the one holding the hammer. While Tyler spent his 20s jumping from one failed business venture to another, always landing softly on our parents' checkbook, I built a property staging business from the ground up. I started with a single rented storage unit full of thrifted furniture. I hauled couches up 3 flights of stairs by myself. I learned the real estate market in Savannah, Georgia, inside and out. By the time I turned 36, I was the sole owner of a historic $1.2 million estate. It was a sprawling 1912 brick masterpiece with a wraparound porch, tall windows, and a parlor that smelled like old pine and success. I paid for it entirely with my own sweat and strategy. My family knew nothing about it. I preferred it that way. Silence was my sanctuary. But a sanctuary is a fragile thing when parasites get desperate. Tyler had recently launched a luxury car flipping scheme. He bought high-end vehicles on credit, expecting to sell them to wealthy clients for a massive markup. He failed spectacularly. The inventory depreciated. The loans compounded. And suddenly, my golden brother was drowning in $150,000 of toxic debt. Brenda and Paul were tapped out. They had already secretly co-signed his early loans, tying their own modest retirement home to his sinking ship. Tyler needed a lifeline. And for the first time in his life, his usual victims had nothing left to bleed. The false warmth started in late November. Out of nowhere, my phone began lighting up with messages from my sister-in-law. Ashley, she was the calculating mastermind behind my brother's hollow bravado, a woman who used corporate buzzwords to mask her complete lack of a moral compass. She texted me asking about my business, sending little heart emojis, casually probing into my finances. Then came the phone calls. She practically interrogated me about my new house. She asked if I lived alone, if I had a security system, if I owned the property outright or if the bank still held the deed. I answered vaguely, keeping my voice light, but my stomach tightened. I knew exactly what they were doing. They were sizing up an asset. To them, my status as a single, childless woman meant my wealth was wasted. In their twisted, narcissistic logic, my brother had a wife and a future, which meant he deserved my house more than I did. The final piece of their puzzle dropped into my lap on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. I was sitting at my kitchen island reviewing invoices when an automated email pinged in my inbox. It was from the Chatham County Property Fraud Alert System, a free service I had registered for the day. I closed on the house. The subject line read, "New document recorded." I opened the attachment. The air in the room grew completely stagnant. My eyes locked onto the screen. Someone had filed a quitclaim deed with the county clerk. The document officially transferred ownership of my estate from Sarah Mitchell to Tyler Brooks. I scrolled down to the signature line. There was my name, forged in a sloppy imitation of my handwriting, complete with a fraudulent notary stamp. They actually did it. They stole my house on paper, elevating their lifetime of petty entitlement into a state felony. My initial instinct was rage. I wanted to drive to their rented apartment, kick the door open, and scream until my voice gave out. I wanted to shove the printed deed into my mother's face and demand to know how she could raise a son who would rob his own sister. But I forced my hands flat against the cool marble of my kitchen counter. Screaming is what toxic families expect. They feed on your outrage. They use your anger to paint you as the unstable one, giving them the perfect excuse to justify their cruelty. I refused to play their game. I chose total silence. I went straight to the district attorney's office. I sat across from a sharp prosecutor and laid the forged deed, the fraud alert, and copies of Ashley's probing text messages on the table. The prosecutor explained that confronting them now would just give them a chance to claim it was a misunderstanding or a bad joke. To guarantee a conviction, we needed them to act on the forged document. We needed them to take physical possession of the property. Georgia is a one-party consent state for recording conversations, meaning as long as I was present, I could legally record anything they said. I spent the next week outfitting my entire ground floor with hidden high-definition audio and video cameras. Then I baited the trap. When my mother called to invite me to the usual agonizing Christmas Eve dinner, an event where I was usually ignored while Tyler held court, I kept my voice smooth and apologetic. I told her I was exhausted from work and had booked a last-minute flight out of state for the holidays. I told her the house would be completely empty. I could practically hear the triumphant grin spreading across her face through the receiver. She quickly agreed, telling me to get some rest. I packed my car, drove it 3 blocks away, parked it in a paid garage, and walked back to my dark house. I locked the deadbolt, sat down in the parlor, and waited. Now, the lock gave way with a heavy metallic clunk. The door swung open, letting a blast of cold Savannah night air into the foyer. Ashley stepped in first, her phone flashlight sweeping across the hardwood floors. She was dressed in a sharp winter coat, playing the role of the legitimate homeowner to the nervous locksmith standing behind her. She handed the man the forged deed and a crisp stack of cash, smoothly thanking him for coming out on a holiday for an emergency lockout. The locksmith nodded, pocketed the money, and walked back to his van. Ashley shut the door, turning the new deadbolt with a satisfying click. Only then did the mask drop. Tyler swaggered into the foyer, holding a bottle of my expensive champagne he had clearly pulled from my wine fridge in the back room. He popped the cork, the loud crack echoing off the high ceilings. "Can you believe this place?" Tyler laughed, taking a long swig directly from the bottle, All this wasted on her. She's going to lose her mind when she comes back and her key doesn't work. Ashley smirked, running her hand along the original mahogany banister. She never deserved it anyway. By the time she realizes the deed is changed, well, have it listed. We cover your car loans, we take the profit, and she can go back to renting a shoebox. I stood up. I reached over to the antique brass lamp beside my chair and pulled the chain. The parlor flooded with blinding light. Tyler choked on the champagne. Ashley's smirk evaporated instantly, her face draining to the color of wet chalk. They froze, staring at me as I stepped out of the shadows. But I was not alone. From the adjoining dining room, 2 uniformed Chatham County police officers stepped forward, their hands resting firmly on their duty belts. Beside them stood a local lifestyle reporter I had partnered with, her camera flashing relentlessly, capturing every ounce of terror on my brother's face. "Merry Christmas, Tyler," I said. My voice was a dead calm ocean. Tyler's mouth opened and closed like a dying fish. He looked at me, then at the police. Then down at the forged deed Ashley was still clutching in her trembling hand. The bottle slipped from his fingers, shattering against the hardwood floor, champagne pooling around his expensive shoes. "This is my house," Tyler screamed, his voice cracking with sudden, violent panic. "I have the paperwork. She's crazy. She's trying to set us up." The lead officer stepped over the broken glass, pulling a pair of heavy steel handcuffs from his belt. "The state of Georgia disagrees." "Sir," the officer said, "you are both under arrest for first-degree forgery and burglary." Ashley began to hyperventilate. She backed into the door, shaking her head wildly, begging the officers, blaming Tyler, claiming she had no idea the signature was fake. It was a pathetic, chaotic display. The officers ignored her tears. Spinning her around and securing her wrists, Tyler continued to thrash and shout about how unfair it all was. Demanding to call our parents, I watched them march my brother and his wife out the front door. The red and blue lights of the squad cars washing over my beautiful porch. I did not shed a single tear. The immediate aftermath was swift, but my enemies were stubborn. On the 26th of December, Ashley's wealthy uncle posted their bail. He was a proud, arrogant man who hated losing, and he immediately hired an aggressive defense attorney. Ashley, fueled by humiliation and pure spite, launched a vicious smear campaign on several local Savannah Facebook groups. She painted herself as the victim, claiming I was a deranged, jealous sister who had framed them over a family dispute, actively trying to destroy the reputation of my staging business. She thought the battle was going to be fought in the court of public opinion. She forgot I fight entirely with receipts. I bypassed the internet drama completely. I gathered the unedited, high-definition video footage of their break-in, the police report number, and a copy of the forged deed. I drafted a highly professional email and sent it directly to the chief compliance officer and the head of human resources at Ashley's prestigious corporate firm. I explicitly cited her felony arrest and accused her of using corporate assets to commit state fraud. Corporate compliance does not care about family drama. They care about liability. Ashley was escorted out of her glass office building by security that very afternoon. She was placed on unpaid administrative leave while the IT department cloned her hard drive. The audit took exactly 48 hours. They found every email she sent to the fake notary, every search history querying deed transfers, all executed on company time using company servers. She was officially terminated for gross misconduct. They stripped her of her severance package, blacklisted her in the industry, and legally handed her laptop directly to the district attorney to comply with the criminal investigation. When the scandal hit the local news, Ashley's wealthy uncle was deeply embarrassed. A man who values his business reputation above all else will never tolerate a sloppy criminal in the family. He withdrew all financial support, publicly cut Ashley off, and refused to pay another dime toward their defense attorneys. With no high-powered lawyers to save them, the reality of the situation crashed down on my parents. Brenda and Paul were suddenly hit with massive criminal defense retainer fees for Tyler, on top of the $150,000 in car loans they had secretly co-signed. The creditors did not care about my mother's tears, drowning in immediate, inescapable debt. My parents were forced to list their beloved home in a humiliating cash-only short sale. The neighborhood they had spent 30 years trying to impress watched from their lawns as Brenda and Paul packed their boxes in utter shame. Their perfect family image was completely destroyed, shattered by the very son they had sacrificed me to protect. Tyler eventually took a plea deal to avoid a lengthy trial, earning himself a stiff sentence in state prison. Ashley filed for divorce the day he was transferred. I spent New Year's Eve sitting on my porch, drinking tea, listening to the quiet rustle of the Spanish moss in the trees. My house was secure, my business was thriving, and for the first time in my life, my family was exactly where they belonged, far away from me. I want to talk directly to you now. If you are watching this, you probably know the exact kind of pain I grew up with. You know what it feels like to be the scapegoat. You know the agony of watching your parents bend over backward to protect an abuser, while treating your survival as an inconvenience. Society loves to push the narrative that family is everything. They tell you to forgive, to be the bigger person, to keep the peace. But keeping the peace usually just means absorbing the war so no one else has to feel uncomfortable. I survived my family, and I learned 3 unbreakable rules in the process. Rule number 1, silence is the ultimate weapon. Toxic people desperately need your emotional reactions to survive. When you cry, when you argue, when you try to explain your side of the story, you are handing them the script. You give them the power to call you crazy or overly sensitive. When you move in silence, you strip them of their ammunition. You stop warning the animal that the trap is set, and you simply let them build their own cages. The most terrifying thing you can offer a narcissist is a total lack of response while you methodically dismantle their leverage. Rule number 2, forgiveness is not a requirement for peace. There is a massive industry built around telling trauma survivors that they cannot heal until they forgive the people who broke them. That is a lie designed to protect abusers. You do not owe your forgiveness to anyone who refuses to acknowledge their actions. Cutting off dangerous. Entitled blood relatives is a profound act of self-preservation, not an act of malice. You are allowed to mourn the parents you deserved while simultaneously protecting yourself from the parents you actually got. My peace did not come from forgiving my brother. My peace came from watching him face the absolute legal consequence of his own greed. Rule number 3, belonging is never granted. It is built. For 36 years, I waited for my parents to set a place for me at their table. I worked harder. I achieved more. I tried to make myself so undeniably useful that they would have to love me. But a table built on favoritism will never have a sturdy chair for the scapegoat. Stop waiting for an invitation to a room that does not want you. Take your energy, take your brilliance, and go build your own house. Buy your own table. Fill it with people who respect your boundaries and strictly guard the locks. Are you currently setting yourself on fire to keep people warm who wouldn't even spit on you if you were burning? Are you draining your own bank account, your own mental health, to save a family member who sees you as nothing more than an ATM and an emotional punching bag. If you are the empty chair at someone else's table, it is time to stop begging for a seat. It is time to change the locks. Drop a comment below if you have ever had to cut a toxic branch off your family tree to save yourself. Share this video with someone who needs the strength to walk away. And hit subscribe for more stories of taking back your absolute power. Publish ready script. I know exactly what you are screaming at the screen right now. You are watching Sarah's story, and you are gripping your phone, shouting, "Why didn't she cut them off 10 years ago? Why did she even entertain their phone calls when she bought that house?" You are looking at the sheer audacity of a brother drowning in $150,000 of debt, trying to steal $1 million estate. And you are wondering how someone as smart and successful as Sarah could let them get that close. Let me decode this for you. Because Sarah wasn't stupid. She was surviving a psychological trap known as the slot machine effect, or intermittent reinforcement. When you grow up in a toxic family dynamic, specifically as the scapegoat, your brain becomes wired to survive on emotional crumbs. If a slot machine loses every single time, you stop playing. But if it pays out just once in a while, a random compliment from a mother, a brief moment of sibling camaraderie, you will pull that lever until you are bankrupt. Sarah's family weaponized hope. They offered her just enough fake warmth to keep her engaged, right up until the moment they needed to bleed her dry. But here is where Sarah flipped the script. Let us look at the street-smart financial defense she used to destroy them. First, she utilized what I call the trap strategy. Most people, when they find out someone is trying to steal from them, confront the thief immediately. They yell, they send angry texts, they demand answers. From a legal standpoint, this is the worst thing you can do. By screaming at them, you educate them. You tell them exactly what evidence you have, giving them time to hide assets or change their story. Sarah stayed silent. She went to the district attorney, recognized the laws of her state regarding audio recording, and let them walk directly into a felony. She didn't argue with the scammer. She let the scammer incriminate themselves on high-definition video. Second, she executed the compliance checkmate. This is the move of a master. When her sister-in-law tried to win the public relations war on Facebook, Sarah did not waste energy arguing in the comments section. Social media is a distraction. Sarah aimed for the foundation of her enemy's power, her income. By sending the police report and the video to corporate human resources, Sarah bypassed personal drama and triggered a corporate liability audit. Companies will protect themselves first. Using a corporate laptop to commit state fraud is a career death sentence. Sarah understood that you don't fight a smear campaign with a louder microphone. You fight it by cutting off their funding. Sarah's story is a masterclass in emotional control and financial boundary setting. Blood does not make you family. Loyalty, respect, and mutual protection make you family. You are completely allowed to walk away from people who hurt you. Even if you share a last name, a history, or a holiday table, trust is earned through consistent behavior, not owed through biology. Your peace of mind, your assets, and your future are worth protecting with everything you have. Do not apologize for guarding the empire you built with your own two hands. If you have survived a family like this, or if you are currently plotting your own silent exit, share your story in the comments below. You are not alone, and your survival is your greatest revenge. Subscribe for more strategies on protecting your wealth and your mind, and I will see you in the next one. I know exactly what you are screaming at the screen right now. You are watching Sarah's story, gripping your phone, and thinking, why didn't she cut them off 20 years ago? Why didn't she just confront her brother the second that fraud alert hit her inbox? Why did she let them get that close to her $1 million home in the first place? It is easy to judge from the outside, But let me decode this for you, because Sarah wasn't stupid. She was surviving a psychological trap known as the slot machine effect, otherwise known as intermittent reinforcement. When you grow up in a toxic family dynamic, specifically as the family scapegoat, your brain becomes wired to survive on emotional scraps. If a slot machine takes your money every single time, you walk away. But if it pays out just once in a while, a sudden warm phone call from a mother, a rare moment of peace at a holiday dinner, you will keep pulling that lever until you are emotionally and financially bankrupt. Sarah was addicted to the crumbs of hope her family fed her. They weaponized that hope, offering her just enough fake warmth to keep her engaged right up until the moment they needed to bleed her dry. But Sarah eventually woke up, and when she did, she flipped the script. Let's look at the street-smart financial defense she used to destroy them, because her story is a masterclass in survival. First, she used the audit strategy. Scammers absolutely hate details. Toxic relatives rely on you being too emotional, too exhausted, or too trusting to actually check the paperwork. By setting up a free county fraud alert and pulling the exact forged quitclaim deed to verify the fake signatures, she audited their lie before they could even unpack their bags. She took away their element of surprise. Next, she moved into building the case. Notice what she did not do. She did not send an angry text. She did not call her mother crying. Confrontation educates the thief. Instead, she used her state's one-party consent laws, installed hidden cameras, and quietly documented every single probing text message. She let them act like they were winning while she gathered undeniable, legally binding receipts. Finally, she executed the ultimate buyout. Usually, a buyout means writing a check to make a problem go away. Sarah invested in her permanent freedom in a much smarter way. She targeted their leverage by bypassing the internet drama and taking the unedited video directly to her sister-in-law's corporate human resources department. She triggered a compliance audit. She didn't just end a family argument. She eliminated their financial ability to ever fight her in court. Here is the brutal verdict. Blood does not make you family. Loyalty, respect, and mutual protection make you family. You are completely allowed to walk away from people who hurt you, even if you share a last name. Trust is earned through consistent behavior, not owed through biology. Your peace of mind and the assets you built with your own two hands are worth protecting with everything you have. Have you ever had to cut a toxic branch off your family tree to save yourself? Drop your story in the comments below. Your survival might just be the exact blueprint someone else needs today. Hit subscribe for more street smart strategies on protecting your wealth and your mind. And I will see you in the next one.